public affairs president of Meta, appeared with our friend Bret Baier to talk about the reinstatement of Donald Trump on Facebook and Instagram. And Clegg was asked by Baier about the Facebook files, if you will. Unfortunately, there are not enough of them disclosed because Elon Musk is not running Facebook. But the Facebook content moderation approach, number one, and then connected to collaborating with the government to do the government's bidding and the bidding of various government agencies the way it's been documented Twitter did. And this is what Nick Clegg said. Baier specifically asked him about the Hunter Biden story, as well as discussion of all things COVID on the Meta platform, Facebook. And this Clegg didn't tackle COVID, but he did tackle the Hunter Biden story, and you can extrapolate from his answer on the Hunter Biden story what he would say about their moderation of COVID debates.
Biden story, other platforms, I think it was Twitter, sort of just deleted the story altogether. We didn't. You could still find the story. Millions of people did. But for 7 days, the prominence of the story was less for those 7 days. It's just part of the way our systems work to allow our fact checkers. We have a network of independent fact checkers to look at the story if they wanted to. They didn't, and after 7 days, that what's called in the jargon that temporary demotion was taken off. So we didn't remove it. People could find it. Many people saw it on Facebook. We were simply following the rules by which our systems currently operate.
Of course. Yeah, and the independent fact checkers, and who could question the integrity of the independent fact checkers, those networks, just had to demote it for 7 days, to get through the election, and then people could find it. Yeah. For more on this, pleased to be joined by Robby Soave. He's the senior editor at Reason.com, host of Rising on Hill TV as well. Robby, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Nice to talk with you.
So were you content with what Nick Clegg had to say about Facebook's content moderation policies, and as to the question of their collaboration with government, he said, look, we frustrate governments more often than not by refusing to do what they want us to do. So their posture is for free and open debate, except when the independent fact checkers say no.
Right. I'm incredibly frustrated with the content moderation policies at our major social media companies, as are many users, citizens. We have learned so much more from the Twitter files and various disclosures about just how much bad moderation was being done at the encouragement of government and at the behest of government. I do think it is a fair point, however, in parsing all this, to see that they did push back somewhat in some cases. So the Hunter Biden case is not a case of pushback, right? They did that of their own volition, and it was a bad decision to Twitter, and then later tried to justify it, for instance. But in a lot of the other cases, you do see from the Twitter files, right, that like the FBI will say to Twitter, for instance, this is Russian disinformation. You got to take this down. And at first, Twitter says, no, we've looked at this. It's nothing. It's not a big deal. You're overplaying this. And then it got more threatening, and it got, well, if you don't do anything about this, you're harming democracy. We think major media corporations and Democratic politicians will have something to say about that. And then finally, they start going along. With Facebook and COVID stuff, it was much more willing than that. But look, there is an issue here in that a lot of the bad stuff seems to me that was actually very much coercive from the government's perspective.
In what way? Can you explain?
Yeah, well, as I just said with the Twitter files, you see in the FBI emails to Twitter them saying, look, here is Russian disinformation. You have to do something about it. And Twitter saying this isn't really Russian disinformation, and then them saying we're going to tell Politico you're not taking misinformation seriously. Oh. And at the same time, you have political figures railing against these companies publicly. Joe Biden in July of 2021 said Facebook is killing people because it doesn't moderate more content relating to COVID. He said that, and then his communications. One of his communications people, Kate Bedingfield, I believe her name is, she went on TV and said, if they don't take our criticism more seriously, we should change Section 230, which is the statute that has to do with how much liability they have for content on the platform. They were basically saying, if you don't do what we say, we're going to look at having punitive regulation hit you. So, look, you can be as frustrated with the social media companies as you want, and to be clear, I am very frustrated, but they were definitely between a rock and a hard place. They were definitely looking at being at least the hint, more than the hint, of being punished for not doing what the administration wanted.
Right. Although what comes across to the Twitter files and what comes across even from some pronouncements Mark Zuckerberg has made is a disposition of collaboration. Their default is to collaborate, is to listen, rather than saying, we're not in the business of taking our marching orders from you at the FBI or CDC. They go on, as Nick Clegg did with Brett Baer, and say, we're a private company and this and that and so forth. We make our own decisions. But the feel of those Twitter files, the feel of what the emails between the CDC and Facebook that you wrote about is a default position to try to accommodate. Is that fair?
I think that is fair. I mean, these are hard. It's hard to tell exactly what their thinking is. Yes, I think they're staffed disproportionately by people who are very amenable to this, who want to be good citizens and define good citizenship as, kind of reflexively listening to what federal officials and federal health officials and maybe federal law enforcement have to say. At the same time, they're being held hostage a little bit. Everyone in politics is railing against them. I mean, Republicans want to regulate these companies for censoring too much content, right? And Democrats want to regulate them for not restricting enough content. So they have no friends in politics, and it's really hard.
Well, but the problem is they're playing politics rather than going back to their original mission statement, something even Jack Dorsey conceded, well after his ouster, that, our original mission statement was this, and they strayed away from it. If you would have said, look, we are a free marketplace of ideas, that's who we said we were going to be, we're going to be that, and if you don't like those discussions, then we understand you don't like them, but we said this is who we're going to be, this is who we're going to be, rather than they're sort of swinging back and forth, catering to one side or catering to the other based on where they think their political bread is buttered at any given moment, and that, puts them in the middle of the road getting hit by traffic going both ways.
Yeah, I think that's basically what happened. And I mean, they've been hauled, the leaders of these companies, Zuckerberg and Dorsey back when he was in charge, and et cetera, they've been hauled before Congress multiple times to be yelled at by members of both parties who are somewhat advanced in their age and have, I think, to be charitable, only a tenuous grasp of the technologies involved. Being told, why haven't you done this and why haven't you done that, from people who don't even understand it. That's something we can't totally write off, even as we express, I think, very legitimate frustration with choices they made with respect to election stuff and COVID and Hunter Biden, which, is so indefensible they've admitted it was indefensible. They've admitted that was a very, very bad call, and I think that was freely chosen. And I think Facebook outsourced all of their COVID moderation policies essentially to the CDC itself. Yep. In ways that are very alarming.
Well, on Twitter, they even refer to them as their coworkers, Twitter employees who are going back and forth with the CDC. It's ridiculous. So right now, is big tech still being run by big government?
Yes. It's being, I think absolutely, but is it being run by big government because big government is holding a loaded gun to their head and saying, do this? Yeah, we're not saying you have to. We're just saying that, nice company you have there. It'd be a shame if someone regulated it out of existence or broke it up. And by the way, there's an entire, panel of bureaucrats and people who are perfectly willing to do that. Just say the word. Just say you're going to go against us. I think their decision-making has to be seen in that light.
Well, the irony about Biden is, Facebook is killing people. I wouldn't say this, but I mean, the irony of the statement is that to the extent Facebook was quote unquote killing people, it was by preventing debate and preventing people from asking legitimate questions and getting answers, or even if they were competing answers from equally credentialed experts. That prevention led to people filling in their own blanks based on their politics of what is judicious and what is not judicious. And maybe they weren't always making the best choices because Joe Biden and his folks at CDC were suppressing debate.
Yeah, I mean, does the CDC have anything better to do with its time than, dictate to Facebook what should appear on the platform? There was they're very much too online, the whole Biden administration, thinking the COVID policy hinges on what you're allowed to discuss on Facebook. I mean, we all know that the CDC, screwed up, especially in the early days, so many times. They screwed up the testing rollout. They prohibited tests that would have worked fine in order to have their own centralized test that then didn't work. I feel similarly, frankly, about some of these law enforcement officials that spend all day apparently flagging obnoxious tweets for Twitter moderators. Like, don't you have every time there's a mass shooting, we find out the person was known to the FBI already. Maybe follow up on some of those leads instead of play on Twitter all day. Huh? How about that?
Yeah, right.
Sounds good to me.
But again, perhaps one of the more infamous examples of this, too, to your point about CDC, was this exchange between Collins and Fauci about trying to silence doctors and scientists that were associated with the Great Barrington Declaration. The epidemiologists from Harvard and Oxford, rather than just engage. And if Jay Bhattacharya or Martin Kulldorff has something you disagree with, then disagree with him publicly, as opposed to trying to use your power at CDC to silence them altogether.
Yeah, and it's treating these subjects like there can be no debate. And look, to be clear, Facebook took down content that I think is totally relating to COVID and other things that I think is totally crazy and has no legitimacy. But it also cut off debate on whether it was possible that COVID emerged from a lab, whether the vaccine should be authorized for children, given the children don't have a particularly statistically bad time with COVID, and what are the benefits there, and various other topics. And I feel like this, and I think many people feel like this, that it is healthy to debate and discuss many of these topics on social media, and that just turning the off switch to all that stuff actually made people more paranoid about various COVID topics. Because when you silence someone, you make them, when you say, we're so afraid of this, we're so afraid of you finding out about this or learning about this or reading this, that's how seductive and powerful and evil this idea is. I think it makes a lot of people more interested in the idea, frankly. I think that's the censor's dilemma.
What do you think about, so now the Department of Justice is going after Google to try to, have them break off their ad piece of their business. Is that going to have an additional chilling effect in terms of big tech's willingness to push back against government agencies? Then we're going to be the next one facing antitrust suits.
Yeah, I think, frankly, yes. And many conservatives who want to defend free speech, I think, are falling into a bad trap of supporting some of these government actions being taken against the tech companies. Again, the major problem is that government actors, federal bureaucrats, political figures are threatening these companies into doing things that I think are bad. Trying to handle it on the company end is I think not a good approach and risks making the problem worse. Like, if we break up Google, how does that? Well, then you could have several entities that all have bad speech policies because they're all being yelled at by the federal government. If you raise their liability, why they would take down more stuff. That's the worst solution of all, is this changing this Section 230 statute, which many conservatives want to do, but it would make it so you could sue Facebook, for instance, if I post a libelous comment on Facebook. Right now, you can sue me, you can't sue Facebook. That's the way the law works. Wow. They want to change that, but I think the obvious implication of that would be then Facebook's not going to let me post at will, or anyone, or just verified users. There'd be some kind of vetting process. That seems like a vast silencing would take place under so many of these policies. So I'm very much against them. We have to correct it on the government end, not on the tech end.
He is Robby Soave, senior editor at Reason.com, host of Rising at Hill TV as well. Robby, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. And he joined us on our Turnkey.pro answer line.
If you're talking about it, Dan and Amy are talking about it. It's Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
The following is a paid political announcement.
Why not Willie Wilson for mayor of Chicago? The criminals won't like Willie Wilson in the mayor's office. Fighting crime is Willie Wilson's first priority. The city isn't safe. The city streets, the CTA, are not safe. Willie Wilson knows that personally.
My son was murdered. I know the anger, and I know the pain.
Willie Wilson is ready to take on the criminals. Finally, Chicago, do it right. Willie Wilson for mayor.
We all want to eat healthy, but have you ever read the ingredients list off of your favorite snack? Between the hard-to-pronounce ingredients and man-made additives, it's difficult to find anything made from real, natural ingredients. Even some of my favorite organic snacks have ingredients I haven't heard of. At Balance of Nature, we know the value of real nutrition that can only be found in real food. That's why the only things you'll find on our ingredients list are real whole fruits and vegetables. No additives, fillers, or artificial ingredients of any kind. Balance of Nature is the best whole fruit and vegetable product on the market, delivering your body everything it needs to function at its very best. Eat better and feel better. Start your journey to better health. Call 1-800-246-8751 or go to balanceofnature.com to get free shipping. And don't forget to get 35% off your first preferred order by using discount code CHICAGO.
You can't live forever, but your legacy can. At Catholic Cemeteries of Chicago, they've helped families set their legacies in stone for over 180 years. With interest-free financing and low monthly payments, now is the time to set your final wishes in place. Visit CatholicCemeteryChicago.org or call 708-236-5490 today to schedule a free consultation.
Folks, when shopping for a home mortgage, how much is great service, low closing costs, and competitive interest rates worth to you? At Townstone Financial, it's priceless. Hi, Barry Sterner, founder of Townstone Financial. Let's hear about the Townstone experience from one of our customers.
My experience with Zach and Townstone was unbelievable. It was stress-free. That's like unheard of when purchasing a home. He informed me in the very beginning what I should expect, how long the process would ultimately be. He kind of held my hand the whole way. It was seamless. It was effortless. I never felt as though I was going into the next phase of the process blindly. Use Townstone